Hello everyone, my name is Ammar Younas. I am CEO of IMO Innovation Consultants. IMO Innovation Consultants is a boutique digital transformation consultancy. At IMO Innovation Consultants, we provide innovative consulting, digital services, trainings, networking opportunities, as well as a full suite of skills that is essential to unlock the growth potential of individuals, enterprises, state bodies, and academic institutions. We have recently introduced a new segment which is called as IMO Talks. The purpose of these talks is to introduce you with different experts, their areas of expertise, and different services which they offer. Another purpose of these talks is to engage students, academicians, experts, state officials, and general public to inspire them, to motivate them, and to seek their feedback. We have been discussing different topics from social sciences, applied sciences, and humanities, ranging from finance, economics, soft skills, technology, philosophy, and so on. The topic of today's talk is legal careers for attorneys in the time of COVID-19. And for discussion, we have a very special guest with us, Kristina DaCosta. Kristina DaCosta is currently serving as a judicial clerk in states. She received her LLM in Chinese law from Tsinghua University, China. She obtained her Juris Doctor degree from Temple University School of Law, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She also holds a BA in Chinese Studies from Carnegie Mellon University. Thank you very much, Kristina, for joining us. How are you today?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me, Ammar.
Pleasure is all ours. So the first question is, obviously you are in states, and in the beginning of pandemic, we were receiving very disappointing news from states. USA remained at the top when we talk about the COVID-19 cases. So can you just brief us, how is the situation right now?
Yeah. So we kind of had a bit of a wave. There was a peak in April where it was at its worst. And at that time, it looked like New York was having the most severe situation. But now it's a little different. Around June time period, the situation had gone a little down, and now it's starting to increase again, especially in the states of Florida, Texas, California. Those are some of the three most severe situations that we're dealing with right now. And it's unclear whether that's going to go back down, but right now you're starting to see all of those effects in different states. You know, states are implementing closing down all over again where they had started to open up. So
yeah, I mean, I was just reading that in last 15 days, the increase is 1 million new cases have been suspected. I don't know how the testing thing is going on, but coming towards the topic, this COVID-19 thing has affected not only on legal profession but all the professions. But since you are a lawyer, can you please just describe that how this pandemic has affected our legal community and how the legal community is dealing with this pandemic?
Yeah, you're gonna see, and this is something I'll talk about. I'll talk about different aspects of this, but I'll first talk about kind of how it's affecting legal certification for new attorneys. And that's not just for attorneys that are just graduated from law school. It's any attorney that's trying to seek a license in the United States. And in order to do that, you have to take a bar examination. The rules are different in each state, but I guess what I'll talk about right now is how each of the different states have attempted to basically still hold this bar examination in light of the COVID pandemic. It's something that every state has grappled with in a different way. And what I'll touch on are kind of some of the main things that have happened. So some of the states have made no changes whatsoever. The bar exam in pretty much all 50 states was going to be held originally in July, and a few of those states have just made no changes, are going to hold an in-person exam with really limited changes to the rules of taking the exam in person, and it's just going to go on as it had before. Some of those states are Arizona, Idaho, Mississippi, Montana. There are a few others, but those are the few states that have made really basically no changes to the exam. There are other states that have made changes, but they've kind of experimented with some of the following different types of, rule changes and adjustments. So the first one is postponing the bar exam. That was something a lot of the states had kind of adopted from the very beginning. They had tried to push it with the expectation that the virus would have been dealt with by around September, and so that it would be safe to have an in-person exam. You saw originally states like New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey adopt those kinds of rules. Some of those states still have them. Another thing that has been done is this shift from in-person exams to remote bar exams. So instead of going to a location, traveling to a location where thousands of people might be in a room together taking the exam and not really having a 6 foot apart requirement, they would be at home on their laptops. They cannot handwrite the exam. They would have to do it on their laptops for security reasons. And right now, a lot of the states have adopted them, but they're still trying to figure out the rules of how they're going to keep things secure. Pennsylvania has that rule now. New York has a remote exam. New Jersey, California also has a remote exam right now. And most of these are going to be set in October. Now, obviously, I'm speaking as of now. Those rules are subject to change depending on the situation of the virus.
So you think that these changes are permanent, or is there any possibility that they will reconsider to conduct them, in campus? Because the similar confusion can be seen here in Central Asia. Exams have this kind of uncertainty. Means some institutions they are planning to conduct online, some institutions they have already postponed them. So do you think that will it be permanent, or there is a possibility that exams will be, physical examinations will be conducted?
It's up for debate, but I think right now the answer is no. Most of the bar examiner boards that are trying to do this, they are very, very reluctant to implement a permanent change, because I think it's mainly because of the security issue. It's really important to take an in-person exam because proctors can monitor you. You have to go through kind of this safety, somewhat customs-like procedure where they make sure you're not carrying anything illegal, you don't have extra notes, you're not bringing in things like alcohol or drugs that are not sanctioned. And that's something that you can't do with a remote exam. However, that is to say, if this is something that is finally and actually implemented in October, when these are scheduled to happen, and it's successful, if it's successful, maybe that's something they might consider in the future. I know that that's something you're seeing in a lot of fields of law. Remote work is something that's been working for a lot of firms. And so that's something that they'll consider, and businesses as well, beyond the legal community.
So beside these, changing about the conduct of exam, did they provide any alternates? I mean, the students, they are looking for their certifications, especially the newly graduates. So what are the other guidelines about the attorney certifications?
Yeah, so what you'll see, and most of the time, this is gonna just be in conjunction with the bar exam. Very few states have implemented any kind of thing that's like diploma privilege. And what diploma privilege is that you basically become certified without having to take the bar exam, given a few kind of other processes that you need to go through, but you don't need to take the bar exam. Wisconsin already has that. Wisconsin has had that. The state of Wisconsin has had that for years. Washington has adopted a temporary diploma privilege. So has Utah, and I believe Oregon has also done so now. And again, that's subject to change. I think it's very likely you might see other states before long, if the pandemic becomes worse, adopt a kind of temporary diploma privilege. And that would be for graduates of law schools. It depends on the state, but in some states, the way they've done it is graduates of 2020 law schools, ABA accredited law schools, and sometimes these schools must have the bar passage rate of 86% or higher, things like that. But aside from diploma privilege, full out diploma privilege, abolishing the bar exam, you take the bar exam later. You don't have to take it now. You can take it maybe in February. You might take it later, but there's a temporary licensing for new graduates so that they can work immediately. They can practice law. You see it in New York, you see it in Pennsylvania. They're able to practice law under the supervision of a licensed attorney. But I think in some states like New York, it's limited to first-time test takers that are graduates of ABA approved law schools. So if you failed the bar exam, you can't do that again. Another thing that's an adjustment beyond just the bar exam is the other thing you have to do to become certified is complete a character and fitness examination. You fill out a bunch of forms that talk about, your past history, your past records, whether it's your driving record or whether it's your criminal history, if any, whether you have been in a divorce and you must pay support. Those are things that are being looked into in character and fitness, but some of those requirements have been lifted in certain states. For example, in New York, there's a requirement that you must complete 50 hours of pro bono service in order to get your certification in New York. That's been lifted for the people that have graduated from law schools in 2020 this year. Another one is New Jersey. There's documentation that originally you had to send through mail in person, or sorry, in concrete paper. Now those are going to be allowed to be sent through online, email, or online submission. So those are options.
I mean, US being a very liberal, progressive, and democratic country, and lawyers are very outspoken. So definitely there will be so many controversies. I mean, different states introducing different rules, some of giving more relaxations than others. So what kinds of discussions are going on among the legal community members regarding these?
Yeah.
Are there any controversies?
Yes. The biggest one regarding the bar exam is diploma privilege. You're seeing a lot of attorneys and law students together really trying to petition to have diploma privilege in many states. You see a petition, the question is, whether it will be implemented. The reason why you're seeing these people, these attorneys and law students petition so hard is because oftentimes current graduates of law schools are left unemployed. And so that's going to, without getting a certification, if they don't have a job currently and can't work under temporary licensing, that's going to just make it even harder for them to try and find a job upon graduation. So diploma privilege would immediately give them certification so they can find a job and practice as an attorney. The other thing is there's a debate about whether the bar exam is really truly a competent or a measure of competence to practice law, a person's competence to practice law. They say that sometimes, you can very much be a good attorney if you don't necessarily pass the bar. That's an argument that's being made. And you see that with a lot of tests. Sometimes tests have limitations of exactly how much they can measure a person's ability to memorize things, use law and apply law, because in practice, lawyers are not really memorizing a whole bunch of law like the bar exam requires. In practice, really, we are looking at different rules as different cases occur. And then we'll do the research and then we'll be able to apply them case by case. So very much practicing law, I've heard it said, is like taking an open book exam. So you see that petition of diploma privilege, you see that petition there's also petitions of people asking that the bar exam be open book for that very reason. And then finally, the other reason why people are petitioning for diploma privilege is just that the feasibility of taking a bar exam right now is just very limited. It's hard to do it. And imagine taking a bar exam remotely when you're at home and you have family and you have to find a quiet place in your family your house, and that's very hard to do. If you have pets or if you have children, or if you live in a loud, crowded, noisy area, these are just, they're obstacles that you really can't avoid for some students, or some exam takers.
I mean, when we talk about logistics, obviously it is not a problem for USA. I would say sitting here in Central Asia. Beside these problems which you have mentioned, what are some of the other problems for the states in conducting these exams remotely or in person? I mean, they have a very well developed system of online education, blended learning, distance learning. They have been conducting these types of exams. I mean, for doctors, certain certifications, they have been doing this. So what are some of the other problems?
Yeah, there's a lot of problems right now that the bar examiners are really still trying to grapple with, and that's why it's so uncertain exactly whether the rules that I've just described are still going to be intact for the bar exams. One of them is, first of all, in-person conditions are just really going to be unsafe. You've got hundreds in a room together, sometimes even up to 1,000 people in a room together. If you try to separate that and make them 6 feet apart, you have less people that can take an exam in the same room, which means you need more space, and that's going to be hard to try to throw together. You've got sick test takers. You've got the idea that, frankly, how many shots does a person, a law student, a test taker get to take the exam? They really only want to do it once. They don't want to have to wait another 6 months to do it again, because the test is administered twice a year only. And they don't want to wait because they have to apply for jobs, and that's money that they'll lose. They'll be unemployed for another 6 months. So they want to take the test immediately. Of course, you've got some people that are going to say, if I'm sick, I'm going to be safe and considerate of other people, and I'll stay home. But you do have the risk of people that say, I will go to the test, the exam sick. And unfortunately, if you're sick with COVID, that makes everything worse. So that's a risk for taking the exam in person. And then finally, there's an issue of the mask requirement. Will you have to wear a mask when you take it? Sometimes people say, yes, you must have a mask requirement. Some states are saying that. Others are saying, no, you don't need it, which increases the risk. But if you have to wear the mask, then what if you have glasses and your glasses fog up? There's just a lot of rules that are just sometimes just getting in the way of an already stressful exam. But then there's the problems with remote conditions. Security is really being the biggest problem, which actually makes it arguably worse than taking an exam in person. When you have to find ways to make an environment secure, just as if it was in person, that is very, very hard to do at each individual's house, because as I said before, you've got a lot of people living together, and obviously there's always the risk of cheating, which is why these exams have to be so secure in person in the first place. It's very, very hard to create rules and programming that might regulate, cheating on an exam. How will you do that? Will you say, if you look this way for too long, that's going to be, we're going to sense that and you failed the exam. But then you've got, well, what if you're trying to take the exam and you're not even cheating and you're just looking that way just because, it makes it harder to take the exam in a way that's makes it, smooth for you to execute, but also, you have that risk of being accused of cheating. So there's just a lot of grappling with security concerns on the exam. And so it's really a very, very tough situation to try and handle. And I think you have to ultimately choose, that the examiners are going to have to choose between, are we going to have to take the risk and just allow a few people that may possibly cheat, just let them through? Or are we going to say no cheating whatsoever, and we'd rather fail people that weren't cheating and, than to let somebody through and cheat? So it's a tough balance to try and strike.
By now they could figure out artificial intelligence blended software or something to monitor the candidates
Yeah.
taking their exams. But I was just thinking that talking about the pandemic, and again the example comes from USA in 1918, when the Spanish flu came,
Mhm.
and we talk about California, that it played in the favor of many people. Many people, they made a lot of money. So definitely there will be some areas of law, some fields of law which have been positively impacted, and some people, they have actually benefited from this pandemic. Definitely majority of the people, they are suffering. So can you just have you observed something like this, that some fields of law, they they are actually getting benefits of this pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely. Just as you see some businesses that are not legal businesses benefiting in some ways from the pandemic, like Zoom and Google and Facebook, these are ways that they've benefited. But you see the same thing in the legal field. So some fields of law that are more popular now and more needed during the pandemic are family law, for instance. You're seeing articles that say that the divorce rates are up in light of the pandemic because, unfortunately, you have the risk of people just being thrown together in a way that they've never been thrown together before, having to stay in the house for prolonged periods of time when they originally would be able to leave and go off to work. And so that's so issues that were already occurring, plans to possibly divorce before the pandemic are now kind of being like pushed forward. I want to have that pushed through now. So those are family law is getting a lot of issues in that sense. It's also deemed as an essential business, so those will continue to be pushed through in light of, even though the courts might be closed. Another one that you see, trusts and estates. You've got more people that want to make wills now in light of the pandemic. So you're seeing a lot more popularity, a lot more use of the trust and estates firms. So that's a big one that's really lit up now in light of the virus. And then finally, there's the one that's also more benefiting from the pandemic is transactional law. You see a lot of businesses looking for legal advice on how to deal with the virus. Things like trying to figure out their scope of liability regarding dismissing employees, talking about, what the legal impact of revised laws due to COVID on businesses might be. I mean, since the laws are constantly changing now and trying to adjust to the pandemic, businesses also have to adjust their position. Like, where does this new law put me? And so they're going to take advantage of those law firms that are dealing with transactional law, or in-house counsel for that matter.
So talking about the situation in the that some lawyers are actually making money, I would say. So
Yeah.
what is the situation of your courthouse, since you are also working in criminal court? So did you see any fluctuations and the cases going up or down?
Yeah, the situation in my courthouse, well, we closed immediately around, I think it was March 18th, I want to say, when pretty much most other places were closing down. Other states were closing down around the end of March. Our courthouse closed down, save for really essential things. I know that there are some Philadelphia courts that had closed down but required their family law judges and staff to still continue to be present to work the system, keep pushing cases through. My courthouse really just tried to deal with as much things remotely as possible. I'm a judicial law clerk, so my job is to do legal research for judges, for my judge in particular. And so my job could very easily be done remotely, and I've been doing work from home ever since. And it's unclear exactly when I will be returning. However, with that said, when things closed down, they closed down for a couple months, and really it was in the beginning of July that things were starting to open up again. They had this kind of phasing in period, you know, there was like, I guess, a red, a yellow, and then a green period, and we're now in the green period phase.
Okay.
But to be clear about the green period, we're not all back. We are trying to resume operations just as they were normal, but you know, we're still trying to limit people, and it just didn't help that the situation is now starting to get back to a severe state that it was looking like in April. So that's going to have an effect on the courthouse. But yeah, that's what we're looking at.
And what about the trials and trial proceedings? I mean, you can do your work remotely, but there are certain things you cannot compromise on.
Yeah. I mean, as I said before, family law is the one that's just going to be continuously pushed forward. Now, I generally focused in the criminal law sector, but those just are not going to be pushed forward because of really what we consider the interest of justice in criminal law. And criminal law is you want the idea behind it is to have a fair trial given by a jury of your peers. And the biggest part that's very hard to do is a jury of your peers. And it's such a value in American criminal law to make sure that this person is found, the criminal is found guilty beyond reasonable doubt. And it's going to be very, very hard to try and do that in a way that's safe, but also just. So criminal law has not been able to start up again in the courthouses. Criminal law, things like pretrial conferences and things that are more procedural, things that can be done remotely, those are being implemented right now. But the actual trial part of it, that's harder. The other risk about that is you still have, you know, people that have been arrested and detained in jail. They are now going to be their detains are much longer than originally would have been planned because we can't keep these cases moving forward. So it's like, how can we deal with a jury right now? We can bring them in person, but the same problem with the bar exams is getting everybody all together in person is very unsafe right now, and you know, increases the risk of COVID spread. So that's not an option. But then do we do Zoom juries? And that's harder to do as well because security, same thing as the bar exam. Can we monitor jury and be really sure that they are paying attention to the case? How do we know they're not muting the trial? How do we know they're not multitasking on their phone or watching TV and another tab on the computer? It's very, very hard to ensure that, you know, a criminal suspect is being charged and tried in a just way, so that when the jury does actually make their decision, that we can be certain it was beyond reasonable doubt and the jury was truly, you know, deciding in a just way. The other thing that's very important for the jury's sake is a safety issue. When jury will convene together in their chamber as before the trial is being finally decided, they must be completely by themselves. Nobody's allowed to listen in. And that's very hard to ensure the safety of through Zoom. How can we be sure that the room is secure? How can we be sure that there's nobody else listening in, not a family member, a child, or in worst case scenarios, somebody else that might have an interest in the case. So these are just risks that are hard to grapple with, and the courts have not fully grappled with them yet. So that's remains to be seen what will happen there.
Yes. So coming back towards our legal profession, and you just mentioned about unemployment. So, and this is the period of graduation as well. So how this unemployment thing is going to affect the recent graduates? I mean, should they keep some hopes attached to the profession, or they should start looking for alternates, or maybe they should just continue to another, discipline?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, very unfortunate situation that the new graduates, 2020 graduates from law schools are in right now, because they've just dedicated 3 years and probably a lot of money, if not scholarships, to trying to get this legal career. And now, if they haven't already had a job secured, and that's not even necessarily so certain even now, because some of those offers have been rescinded. According to an ABA journal report, 49% of law schools that were included in a mid-June survey by the National Association for Law Placement has had reported law graduates whose offers were rescinded. So make that shorter, 49% of law schools in this report reported that law graduates had offers that were rescinded. So that's to say, even if you had job security upon graduation, that job security could have just been rescinded. And so you're in a situation of unemployment, just like some people that have not found jobs. Rescinded offers were most common in private practice. Another thing is that half of the law offices that hired new 2020 grads have not yet established start dates for these new hires. So they have no idea when they will begin their work. Out of those that did, 62% have scheduled their start dates to be in January of 2021, and 69% of law offices with deferred start dates, so that's around January or later, are offering stipends or cash payments to new associates. So that's a really good situation to be in if you have found a job like that.
Yes. I mean, I can say that law offices are more worried about securing their own business than thinking about the recent graduates. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
So one of the questions when we were marketing this event has been asked by so many people in Central Asia and South Asia, and the question is that how a international lawyer, a lawyer with a degree from another country, start a legal career in states.
So say that again. How was I able to start a legal career in the States?
No. How an international lawyer, a person who has received his degree from another country, can start his legal career in United States?
Yes. Well, it starts with certification. It starts with certification. You need to be licensed as an attorney in some state, specifically in the state that you are planning on practicing. Now, it depends. If you're trying to actually practice law in the United States, it doesn't really matter. You just go to the state that you want to practice law and you get certified there, and you have to abide by the rules that they have set. Most of them have set the requirement of a bar exam. Most of them have also required that you graduate from an ABA accredited law school as well. So you must do law school plus you must do bar exam. Not every state has done that though. First you have New York, which only requires the bar exam and does not necessarily require going to law school. Same thing with California. California is very much like that as well, which is why you see a lot of international lawyers trying to get their certifications in those two states. And if they simply just want US certification and are not trying to practice in the US, they can just go to either California or New York and get their certification, take the bar exam, and complete the character and fitness, and then they'll be certified. So that's one way. The other thing that you can do, there's some states that, as I said before, allow diploma privilege. But I believe, if I'm understanding this correctly, because Wisconsin has always had it. Wisconsin is the only state that has always had diploma privilege. But the idea is, I believe if you have gone to the law school, the ABA accredited law school, and you complete just some sort of minor requirements, you do not have to take the bar exam. So it looks like you're looking at either take the bar exam without going to law school, or go to law school without taking the bar exam, or in most situations, you have to do both.
Yes. So since you are working in a court and you studied law in states, also you have studied law in Asia. So what are the other alternative or the other career options available for international lawyers if they plan to, start their career in maybe in paralegals? Have you observed some of international lawyers who didn't pass their bar exams, but they are working in the legal profession in states?
Yeah. So paralegal is definitely one of the biggest ways you can do that. There are a lot of very much legal related fields that you can engage in. You can work in nonprofit organizations for your legal research, legal expertise. A lot of it is legal research, and paralegal is probably the biggest one. So you can be hired by a law firm. If you're interested in going the law firm route, this is actually a very good way to go, because you start off as a paralegal, they'll know your name, they'll know who you are, you'll develop a relationship with this law firm. And once you have let them know that you're interested in becoming a lawyer, a full-blown attorney, a US attorney, then you may have a higher chance of either being receiving an offer from that law firm, or you might just have opportunities to pursue a career at a neighboring law firm, because networking is really one of the biggest ways to
Yes.
become successful in the industry. And so just being a paralegal at a law firm, the bigger the better. The more likely you're going to be able to network and get your name out there, and be able to find a career upon doing the requirements I said before, either law school or bar exam or both.
So another question is that how difficult is this bar examination for international lawyers? Because you have talked with international lawyers, you have seen them taking these bar exams. So what are their views and what is your own evaluation? I mean, is it very easy for a recent graduate from a good university in Asia to take this exam?
Honestly, I will say, obviously, probably the biggest obstacle you'll have as an international lawyer is any kind of language barrier. So if you are struggling with your command of English, that might make it harder, because there are a lot of nuances that are going to be included in bar exam questions that you might find harder to comprehend. So just see if you can. I think studying, though, really makes anything possible. So the more you study, the more you work on it. And they have bar prep courses. There are bar prep courses that you can take. In fact, even all law school graduates that are US citizens, they are strongly advised to take a bar prep course. They're not required, but they're strongly advised. And so it's just a good thing to do either way, because what those bar prep courses do, they give you basically examples of the exam. They'll give you questions that are just like what are on the exam, because they've been on past exams, or they're made to look exactly like those that are on the exam. So by the time, if you have, and they'll measure your grades, they'll tell you how well you've done, and they'll monitor your progress and your improvement. So by the end of it, you'll know that if you've received a certain kind of average set of grades throughout the practice, the studying, you'll know whether you'll be doing well on the exam or not. You'll know whether you'll pass or not. Obviously, there's always a bit of a gamble, a risk that if you don't have a score as high, you might still pass. You don't know. But the chances are, if you do hit a certain point, a score, and I know in the one course that I took, if you got a 75%, or even a 60 to 70 kind of percent range of doing well in those questions and essays, then you will likely do very well on the exam. You'd at least pass. And the bar exam is pass fail. So it's not that you have to have, a certain higher rate more than other people that you're taking it with. It's really just you get a certain score, which is about 60% correct, then you'll pass.
And the final question is, in this part of the world, there is a concept of mentorship. So this is a culturally relative thing. many legal scholars, they serve as a mentor for junior lawyers. So do you think that mentor plays an important role in the professional life of a lawyer? And what you will suggest to the students who are planning to pursue a career in law? Should they look for a mentor?
I always recommend getting a mentor if you can. You want to make sure that the mentor you choose is going to be in the field or at least the general type of law that you're trying to pursue. So there's just different fields of law. You've got kind of more corporate law, you have more trial procedure, you have more public interest law, you have public policy making, creating legislation. If you are trying to get to a certain one of those legal fields, you're going to want to get a mentor in those legal fields because they are very different from each other. And a person who works at a law firm may not necessarily know what it's like or how to mentor a person trying to pursue public policy, and then vice versa. And even better if you can get somebody that has an understanding of the field, the specific field of law that you know. So would you like, if you prefer trusts and estates, you want to find a mentor that specializes in that. But that's not as necessary as finding somebody that works in the same type of law. Like law firms, you want somebody that works in law firms. In-house counsel, you want somebody that works in in-house counsel that knows that field, because just another lawyer won't be able to tell you. They won't tell you what to do because they won't know.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much, Kristina, for sparing time for us. It was a wonderful discussion, very informative. Since you have been in Asia, you have studied in Asia, you understand the demand of the lawyers in Asia and the families, their expectations. And also you have summarized what is happening in states and how it is going to affect the lawyers in states, and and the most important thing, that what the international lawyers should be expecting if they are planning to pursue their American dream. So thank you very much for highlighting some of the key issues, and thank you very much for our audience for joining us. We will be back once again with a new discussion. Until then, goodbye.